With Donald Trump making tariffs a cornerstone of his election campaign, there have been a lot of questions about what tariffs are, how they're used, and their impact on the economy. Tariffs are a tax imposed by one country on goods imported from another country. The U.S. buys and imports over $500 billion worth of goods from China alone. This includes electronics, machinery, mechanical parts, clothing, toys, furniture, chemicals, rubber, leather, aluminum, and so on. What's important to know is that the tax is on the goods themselves, not on the country. So a tariff on Chinese imports is a tax on the products coming into the country from China. It's not a tax on China itself. This means that whoever is buying these products is in fact paying the tax, and in this case, that's the American companies that are importing the products. For example, Nike gets 42% of its sneakers from China. They buy these sneakers, import them here into the US, and then distribute them for sale in this country. If we put a 60% tariff on all goods from China, then Nike will have a very big problem. The cost of the shoes in China remains the same. The cost to ship them over to the US remains the same. But once they get here, Nike has to pay an additional 60% to get the shoes off the boat just so that they can distribute them to the stores here. And just like any tax, sure, Uncle Sam gets the money, but it's Nike that's paying the tax, not China. And Nike isn't even one of the top 10 importers from China. The single largest importer from China is Walmart. If we impose a 60% tariff on everything that comes in from China, the wholesale prices is going to skyrocket. And Walmart is a for-profit company, so they don't just leave that kind of cash lying around in case taxes jump 60% overnight. If they want to stay in business, they're going to have to find a way to make up the difference, and fast. Now, they're not going to try just one strategy. There's a number of things they're going to have to do. One thing they're going to do is cut costs, which means fewer stock items, lay off employees, lower wages, cut back on store hours, or even closing stores altogether. Unfortunately, these methods take time and won't make up the bulk of the difference. Realistically, the fastest, cheapest, and easiest way to make up that difference is to raise prices, essentially passing the cost of that tax onto the consumer. So really, the person who's paying the bulk of these tariffs is you. So why doesn't Walmart just say, buy sneakers made here in the US? Well, if there were enough manufacturers of shoes in the US who could make thousands of Nike sneakers fast and cheap, Nike would already be using them. What's more, US labor isn't cheap, and sneakers are made up of mostly rubber and leather, two things that are also imported from China. Businesses can and will import products from other countries with no such tariffs, but those countries will take advantage of the situation, jack up their prices, because they know that Nike isn't going to have a lot of options if it wants to stay in business. And this is just shoes at Walmart. Target, Dole Foods, Dow Chemical, and Samsung America are among the companies rounding out the list of top 10 importers from China. They'll all have to raise prices on their products and cut back on quality and services in order to stay in business. This is to say nothing of any business which uses any of the materials shipped from China, like leather, rubber, and aluminum. Now, if this sounds pretty bad, don't worry, it gets worse. Because Trump has said that he'll put tariffs on Canada and Mexico, who is our single biggest trading partner. Mexico primarily sends us textiles, clothing, electronics, cars, and parts. The entire U.S. automotive industry gets the vast majority of its parts from Mexico. So they're going to get hit pretty hard too. And again, they're going to have to pass most of that on to the people who are buying their products. So Walmart, already paying more for products that they import, are also going to get hit with higher shipping costs, paying more for engine parts, repairs, and more for uniforms, laundry detergent, cleaning chemicals, and for the computers at the front desk and all the rest of their operating expenses. Any company, from a grocery store to an office supply chain, which ends up having to transport goods on America's highways, is going to find their shipping costs go up as the cost of vehicles and parts and maintenance rises with the tariffs. So now, even companies that aren't involved in importing or exporting are going to find many of their operating expenses go up, and they're going to have to pass that on to the consumer as well. So all across America, you're going to find companies employing less, cutting back. You're going to find people will be making less. Everyday products will cost more. And the economy, which right now is actually doing pretty well, is going to tank. And sure, the government is going to be making money from these tariffs, but one way or another, you're paying for it, not Mexico. Think that's bad? Don't worry, it gets even worse. See, tariffs are designed to even out the playing field in targeted economic areas where foreign businesses may have an unfair advantage over American businesses. Trump, however, is slapping ridiculously high tariffs on entire countries, two of whom, by the way, are allies. Purportedly, this is to get China, Mexico, and Canada to address a number of domestic issues that trouble him that he thinks they can fix, but really they have no control over. But Trump is right about one thing. Even though they don't have to pay the tariffs, none of these countries are actually going to be very happy about this. The reason is because the U.S. imports a lot of goods from these countries. China and Mexico in particular make a lot of money by manufacturing and selling us their goods. A high tariff means fewer of their goods get sold to the U.S., hurting their economy. In fact, tariffs can be so damaging that wars have been started over this kind of thing. Now, unfortunately for us, if you're a major U.S. trading partner who's about to get hit with a bunch of tariffs that you don't like, there's actually one very simple way to deal with the problem. Just apply a whole bunch of retaliatory tariffs back. Indeed, all of these countries have said that they would match any tariffs against them, dollar for dollar, with tariffs against the United States. So now, not only would we have a serious import problem, but would have a serious export problem as well, since 3 of our top export partners would impose equal tariffs on our products. Anyone wanting to buy an iPhone in Mexico would have to pay an additional 60% more, and if you're in China and you're thinking of getting a Tesla, well, you'll have to decide if you're willing to spend a whole heck of a lot more money to get it. So, while it's easy for us to slap a tariff on imports from a country, it's just as easy for them to tag us back, only now they're pissed at us because we've just shot ourselves and everyone else in the room in the foot because Trump wants to play to a base who slept through Econ 101. In fact, this has already happened before, and it's happened with Trump. In 2017, Trump hit China with a whole bunch of tariffs over IP issues. They hit back hard. You may or may not care about soybeans. I don't know much about them, and I honestly don't think about them quite a lot. But in 2017, we traded $12 billion worth with China. That is, until they retaliated, dropping us to $3.1 billion in just 1 year. That's 75% of the entire soybean market wiped out. And that was money coming from China to the U.S. They were paying us that money, and we lost 75% of it. The resulting trade war isn't fully yet resolved. It yielded no tangible results and accomplished none of Trump's stated objectives. He simply declared victory, moved on, and now 7 years later, all anyone remembers is that we won a trade war with China in which we didn't get anything, and soybean farmers in the U.S. were completely wiped out. His strategy this time appears to be that, well, since a trade war with one country didn't really work out, maybe doing one with 3 at the same time will yield better results. Now, apologists will say that he knew all along how tariffs work. He's just behaving erratically to look like a madman and intimidate all other countries. And if his goal is to look crazy, congratulations, it's working. But I suspect he's not likely to stand for the kind of damage that these proposals would have on the U.S. economy, and I suspect certainly his supporters aren't either, if he put them in place for any significant length of time. Most likely, he'll keep them there just long enough to talk tough to the base before coming out with a negotiated settlement, which is completely unenforceable, deals with trivial issues that nobody cares about, sit there, declare victory, keep token tariffs in place, and just go on to other shenanigans. The alternative is to keep these tariffs in place for an extended period of time, and while I don't credit Trump with an overabundance of intelligence or patriotism, I do think he needs to feel adored, and I think creating an economic disaster is not likely to help him in that area, and he will probably find a way to move on. For more on this and other topics, please join us at youtube.com/InTimeShowOfficial. Good night.